Hi everyone, and welcome to this tutorial. In this video we're going to run you through how to create and share jigs inside of the Jig workshop. Once you've signed into your JigSpace account using the details located in your email, you'll be brought right into this home page. Now this page is where you can find all of the jigs that you've created, but to start off with we're going to click and create a new jig. Now we have two different options here. We can choose to bring in a 3D model from our CAD library, or we can load up our own 3D CAD files. And you can see that's loaded into our scene. So now we'll begin editing our model using the Jig toolbar. You can see that this contains a number of different tools that will allow us to edit our 3D model. We're going to start off with the Move tool. By dragging on these arrows, I'm able to move our model around our 3D scene. I can also open our Objects Properties panel in order to edit our position, rotation, and scale. Now if you watch the X-axis panel, you'll see that those position coordinates change as I move our object around our scene. I can also rotate my object and you'll notice those rotation values changing. I can also type in a custom value in our Z-axis box. I can also do the same with the scale. If I scale my object up, you'll see those values changing. I can also scale my object across the different axes. So the Object Properties panel is especially useful when doing precision movements, rotation and scale changes to your 3D model. You can see that I can edit our object's color. I can also apply some transparency or make it invisible using the Hide tool. We also have a number of different photorealistic materials to choose from. I'm just going to stick with the standard for now. Next, I'd like to show you the Spin tool. Once I turn this on, you'll see that our whole object is able to rotate. We're able to change the spin across different axes, but this tool is most powerful in sub-object mode. Here I can spin things like our turbine. I can also add in a custom value or drag this up to spin faster. And I can turn that spin off simply by turning off the toggle. Next, I'd like to add a label to our sub-object. In this case, I'll fill in turbine. Now if anyone clicks on this object, either in AR mode or in the web viewer, that label will automatically appear. I can also set this label to always visible. This means that the label will stay turned on and attached to our object at all times on this step. Next, I'm going to show you the Delete tool. You can see that our turbine sub-object has now been deleted from our jig. And in order to bring that back, I just need to go to the Undo tool and our sub-object will automatically be loaded back into our scene. Once you swap back into object mode, you'll also be able to access the Duplicate tool. This tool allows you to create an exact duplicate of the current object you have selected in your jig scene. This duplicate will also have the attributes that you've edited applied to it. So if you've changed or applied a material and color to your object, as well as given it some spin or labels, those will all be copied across to that new object as well. So this can be a great way to quickly populate your scene with pre-edited objects. One of the most powerful features of the Jig toolbar is our Replicate menu. In order to open that up, I'm going to press and hold on the Move tool. And now while we have this menu open, any of the attributes I select in our Jig toolbar, I'm able to copy across to different steps of our jig. So I can select as many of these as I'd like. I can click on them again to remove them from my selection. I'm then able to use multiple different copying menus. I can copy back multiple steps, copy back one step. I can copy these attributes to all steps, or I can copy forward one step or forward multiple steps. And we also have the option to copy and paste these attributes to a specific step in our jig. And those changes will be applied across the different steps of your jig. So once our CAD model has loaded into the scene, we're going to edit it using the Jig toolbar. You can see we can edit the color in the color slider. We also have a number of different materials to choose from. In this case, I've selected a copper and I'm giving it a generic silver color. Now, in order for me to select these external pieces, I'm going to press and hold Shift in order to multi-select. I just need to click on a model again to remove it from my selection. But in this case, once we've got these outer components selected, I'm going to edit their color and materials and make them a white plastic. Now to start off with, we have this 3D model of the jet engine. So with this object in our scene, I'm going to go to the object list. And once I open this up, you can see that we have our jet engine workshop model. So if I select this model in the list, you can see that it's been selected inside of that Jig Workshop 3D scene. Now I'm also able to use this drop down in order to reveal the individual meshes or sub-objects that make up this 3D model. And as you can see, I'm able to select the individual models inside of this jet engine in order to edit them. And you can see I'm also able to select this outer casing, and by turning on the hide tool, I'm able to turn off its visibility, and I'm actually able to select through this hidden model in order to select and edit these internal components. Next, I'm going to select a couple of these internal pieces and apply colors and materials. And once this is complete, in order for me to restore that external casing, I just need to go back to the object list and turn off the hide tool. That should restore this outer casing and allow me to now select and view this inside of the Jig Workshop. Now if I wanted to select these objects and give them labels, you can see that this label field is currently empty, but another feature that we have available by swapping into object mode is the ability to use the names from files. So I'm able to take the names found in our object list that are a part of these 3D model files and apply them to the 3D objects in our scene as labels. Now the Add Content menu has a number of different options to choose from. You can choose to import your own CAD files into your jig. You can select a 3D model from our model library or from your Team Objects library. You can also load an image or video into your jig, and you're able to bring in a 2D text object into your 3D space. And finally, we have the ability to save your currently selected 3D object into your Team Object library. So once we've applied our colors and materials to this 3D model, I can select our object and go to the Add Content menu and save our object to the 3D model library. I'm also able to move around this screen in order to get a clean thumbnail image, and I can edit the name of this 3D model. So I'm going to press save, and I'm going to save this model to our Team Model library. And once this model has been saved, if I go to the Add Content menu and look inside the model library, you can see that inside Team Objects, our 3D model has been applied to our 3D model library. And if I click on this model, I'm able to add it to my jig, and it also contains a number of the different details relating to this 3D model. Now, to start off my jig, the first thing I'd like to do is zoom in, and I'll add in a new step. This will leave step 1 as a good base step or introduction, and on step 2, I'm going to swap into sub-object mode and open up our 3D model in order to reveal those internal components. I'm then going to check our transition so far. You can see that the transparency has created a soft fade between step 1 and step 2. Next, I'd like to feature the turbine as the focus of this step. In order to do this, I'm going to select our turbine and give it some spin. You can see that I'm also able to reverse the rotation of this turbine, but in this case, I'm going to keep it positive, and I'm also going to add in a custom value to speed up that rotation. Next, I'm going to add in a label to our turbine, and I'm going to turn that label on. And you can see that that turbine label stays attached to our object. Now when I go from step 1 to step 2, you can see that that label will also have a smooth fade in as you go between those steps. So on step 3, I'd like to add in an effect that shows air flowing through the jet engine. But firstly, I'd like to select my turbine, and I'm going to turn off its label on this step so that it doesn't distract from the effects shape. So again, I'm going to add content, and I'll go into the model library, and in the effects panel, I'm going to select one of our effects shapes. I'm then going to scale up and position this airflow effect at the front of the jet engine. And then I'm going to change its color to be a soft blue. This will help to emphasize that it's fresh air that's being brought into the jet engine. Next, I'm going to select our airflow effect, and I'm going to use the duplicate tool in order to create an exact replica of that effect on this step. Again, I'm going to position our object at the rear of the jet engine, and I'm going to elongate it in order to increase the speed of that flow effect. I'll also make it a soft orange to indicate that the air has been heated up. The next thing I'd like to do is bring in a title card on step 1. In order to do this, I'm going to the Add Content menu, and I'll select to bring in a text object. Again, I'm only applying this object to this scene. I'm going to zoom out and position this object just above our jet engine model. I can then edit the text in the text tool inside the jig toolbar. I'm able to edit this object's size as well as the color of the text. And if I want the backing card to no longer be visible, I can turn this off by going into the color tool and turning on this object's transparency. Next, on step 3, I'd like to upload an image graphic. I want this to show the different processes happening between the chambers of the jet engine. To do this, I'm going to add content, and I'll select the image file I want to upload from our folders. Again, I'm just applying this image to this step, and I'm going to reposition and scale this object up to align with the different chambers of that jet engine. I'll also add some transparency in order to minimize the background so that you can see through that object. So what I'd like to do next in this jig is add in the text of each of our steps. You can see that we're currently on step 1, so what I'd like to do is add in the text that introduces the focus of this jig. So next I'm going to go to step 2. Now the main focus of this step is the turbine, so I'm going to add in our text that discusses what the turbine does in the jet engine. Next, I'm going to move to step 3, and on this step, I'm going to discuss the process of the air as it flows through our jet engine. We can add more information to our jig using the text box below. We can also record audio, but in this case, I'd like to upload a jet engine sound effect. So I'll select that from my folders. We can then preview our jig in AR mode. We just need to make sure to press save. So you can see our jig in AR. In order for you to view it yourself, just scan the QR code using your tablet or phone. So once you're happy with your jig in AR mode, the next thing to do is to add in its final details and save it. In order to do that, we're going to go to the left-hand side and open up our details panel. Now you can see that the name of our jig has been automatically filled in. This has the name of the first 3D model you brought into your scene, and you can see that we've also got a thumbnail image. This is automatically generated when you save your jig. So firstly, I'd like to edit the name of this jig. I can also add in a description of what this jig covers. You can see that we can also edit our thumbnail image. I would recommend this as you can get a more dynamic shot by moving around this 3D space. In this case, I'm going with black as it provides good contrast against the jet engine, and this will be saved into our jig. Now in our menu we have a number of other options. We have the ability to change the background color of your jig scene. This will be visible when viewing your jig through the web viewer if you had a lot of small white pieces. Changing the color to black could help improve the contrast and your ability to visualize your 3D models. We also have the ability to autoplay steps. This allows us to set the steps so that they play on an automatic loop. We recommend when deciding on a speed for these steps to play at, you find the step of your jig with the longest portion of text. Then you should base the duration of the steps on that time it takes you to finish reading. This is so that when viewers are viewing your jig, they're able to complete the text comfortably as they go through your jig. We also have the ability to loop steps. Once you hit the final step, it will loop back to the beginning and play through again in a continuous loop. Next, we have exploded view. This allows viewers, when they're viewing your jig in AR mode, to pull on a toggle for your 3D model to expand out into all of the different pieces of your 3D CAD. And finally, we have the ability to duplicate your jig. This can be useful if you want to make multiple iterations on the same jig, or if you want to transfer your jig to someone else's account, they will be able to edit it. Once you've completed and saved your jig, there are multiple ways for you to go about sharing this, both internally and externally with potential customers. To do so inside the jig workshop, you just need to go to the Details panel and scroll down to the bottom and open up the Share menu. We're going to start off with the basic share links, so I'm going to open that up. Now you can copy and share this link via emails or through your social networks in order to allow you to share these jigs across different platforms. We also have a tool specifically for sharing jigs within your team. So if you have a company tenant, you should have the ability to manage the access of who amongst your team is able to view and edit your jig. Now when I scroll up, you can see that that access has been granted. I'm also able to change whether or not they have access to edit this jig. Right now it's just set to me, and I'm also able to remove this access at any given time. Another great way for you to share your jig amongst your entire team is through team sharing. And now every Jig user in our company tenant will be able to view this Jig in their Team Jigs panel. You can also choose to allow resharing. This can be useful when you want your marketing team to be able to share these Jigs outside of the company with potential clients. And once you have these Jigs shared and available in multiple locations, you still have the ability to control whether or not these Jig links are active. Now, in order to set them to private, you can just go to the lock and turn privacy mode on. This will just mean that any links or QR codes are currently inactive unless a recipient is in our company tenant. And we also have the ability to set them to password protected. This will automatically generate a password. I'm able to add a new password or keep the existing. Now, if someone were to open your Jig via the links that you shared, they'll need to go and type in the password before they're able to open and view your Jig. Another useful way to share your Jig is through Jig QR codes. You can see we have this scannable image already created. You just need to download this image and paste it into your social media. You can also apply the QR code to promotional materials as well as instruction manuals. Finally, you're able to embed your Jig into your company website using the downloadable embed code. Once we've uploaded this code, you won't need to download the app in order for your customers or clients to view the Jig. You'll simply be able to experience that Jig inside your website in a seamless experience.